if the pattern that you know of, which has been running, the show for a long time, is one of I can't make decisions. I'm always swayed by everyone else, and when I do make a decision, I always change my mind. So therefore, I'm received as, I don't know, unreliable or indecisive or flaky or whatever, the thing is, right? Like the end result of it. The other side of it, a different version of that would be I'm completely decisive and I'm so decisive that once I decide, I would never change my mind, and it's almost like the my way or highway type variation, right? Like the difference to the first version, let's say. And I'm sure there's other variations. So it depends on, what is running the show, as in your life, which pattern. If your work is, okay, I need to learn to make decisions and stick with them because that's what I struggle to do, that might be the thing that, might need to be worked on. Or if my version is like, everything's kind of ones and zeros, black and white, everything is yes and no and nothing in between. I've made a decision, and I always make a decision and I make it quickly, and I'm super decisive, and once I've made it, that's it. Like there's no changing it. For example, as in like I'm rigid with my ways. One is like completely, let's say, floaty and dependent on others. The other one is like, this is it and there's no changing it. And I'm sure like there's variations in between. So whatever the thing is that we're working on, generally I find that life presents opportunities, in quotes, for us to learn the thing that we are learning. So if it's decisiveness, then I will normally get opportunities to learn to be decisive. I'm too decisive, so to speak, and I need to learn to loosen up a little bit. Like I'm too rigid, then I will get opportunities to learn that, and not just learn it, but obviously put it to practice. That's where I think, either when we are working, together, I get to like guide, guys through it, and or, either at the beginning or eventually you bring enough awareness to it, and you have enough awareness that you can see that, and you can start to realize like, okay, that's my pattern, there it is again, and here's the thing I'm learning, and here's what I need to practice. Here's like, I need to practice decisiveness. And then it's, I think I talked about it in Inspire the other day. It's like too little, too much, too little, too much, too little, too much, too little, like, so we go from extreme to like, we start to learn how to calibrate, like, okay, that's about a good kind of medium. And, I can actually go the range if I need, but this is generally like a good, amount to be. And that can take some time of like going, like, that experience, like going too much basically on either end, and then adjusting. And, that's the learning, that's the growth, the evolution. So we become more calibrated with like, okay, what is too much, what is too little, and what's my stand on this, and where do I stand with it, and how much flexibility is there once I've, taken a decision, and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes we're very, so we're learning to make a decision, we're very good at making a decision. So then like we're so good at making a decision that once the decision is made, nothing can change. That's it. It has to be fixed and it's too rigid. So like, okay, so now suddenly you're learning the opposite, and therefore you keep calibrating until you find like, okay, I'm getting better, I'm getting more skilled at making these decisions, or being more flexible once I've made a decision, for example. Then you will start to get, different results, because people obviously will respond differently because you are deciding and responding differently over time. I don't know what genuine goodness means, because what is the opposite? Like ingenuine badness? So if you're learning to make decisions, you start to make decisions and then you commit. I think the other side of it is like, learning to not be too rigid. I know I can be too rigid, and it doesn't work, or like I don't like it when I've been too rigid, and I'm like, that's not what I wanted, that's not the result. Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. So that's what I would say, like, once I commit, so whether it's right or wrong. Sometimes it's not that simple, right? Like, life's not always just this like right or wrong thing, and sometimes there's a lot between right and wrong. Sometimes what is right feels wrong, but it's actually right. Sometimes what it's wrong feels very right. And who it feels right for, and when and how, and it can feel right now, but then later it feels wrong. So that's also like, there's a level of rigidity there when things are, it's again like the mind trying to put things in boxes and make it like compartmentalize it and box things up and make it black and white. Like, oh, I've made decision, tick, done. Okay, I've stuck with decision, tick, done. Okay, I'm following through on that. It's like, yes, and you're human too, and you can adjust, and you can change your mind if you need to. So I keep contradicting myself, because it's not like a one fixed answer. Because even when you learn to, like, you find yourself being really rigid, and then you learn to be more flexible, and then you might go the other end, like, again, like you're now too flexible. So you start to get the results of that, and you're like, okay, that was too much. So let me bring it back a little bit. Let me, reel it in a bit, and learn like, okay, this is a good, kind of median, like this range here that I can work with. And then sometimes, like with certain people, like they're just the way they are. Maybe they need that rigidity, because if there's any amount of flexibility, like they would just, there is no boundaries, or they have no sense of other people, like boundaries. And when people set certain boundaries or say yes or no, there is no such thing as no. So they will just they're not even trying to bulldoze it. It's just that the way they operate is that it's just like a lack of borders and boundaries. So they will just like, it's all just like floating and meandering. So then you kind of have to set certain, with certain people, like, no, this is the time, or this is the location, or this is the thing that we are, I'm choosing, or I'm doing, or whatever the thing is, the decision is. Yeah. So it has, I would say, to be calibrated with the situation, the person or people, your own kind of where you're at in your journey and what you're learning. If you're learning to make decisions, or if you're learning to be more flexible because you're too rigid. I think these are all factors that would, that would come into it and have a play in the, the end kind of decision and result. And even that is like, sometimes that's just how the mind works. You make a decision and the mind goes, oh, maybe I should have just done the other one, chose the other decision, the other choice. So, again, how, what do you know of your patterns, like your mind? Like, does it always do that? Does it always, like, every time you make a decision, it goes, oh my God, shit, what did I do? I need to change my mind. Or maybe not. Yeah. So that's something you'll have to weigh up, whether it's worth messing people around and what's the repercussion of that or result of that. Wonder how much of this my pride. If you're asking the question, then pride probably plays a part in it. So maybe it needs to be looked at, like some awareness brought to it. I hope that helps.